Summit Entrepreneurs Network. Today we are joined together with Gita, founder of Our Fitness. Hi Gita, how have you
Hi,
been?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. How has everything been for you? How has been the COVID period, or
Mhm.
now I say post-COVID period? How has it been for you and for Our Fitness?
It's been wild. So that's all I'm going to say, and we can talk more about it.
One word, wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear that a lot actually. I mean, Gita, for those who are watching this,
Yeah.
some of us might not be very familiar with our fitness. So
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the honors of actually explaining what our fitness is and what are your various ventures.
Okay. Our Fitness is one of Indonesia's boutique fitness companies. We offer boutique classes in cycling. It started with cycling and then it went into other forms of cardio. We also do yoga. And basically, we're a lifestyle company where hopefully we can make wellness a little bit more accessible, inclusive, and reachable.
Thank you so much, Gita, for explaining our fitness in short, but like in summarizing it as fast as you can. I'm so excited for this interview, so I'm going to dive into the first question.
Thank you.
Gita, what has been the driving force for creating your business, and how has your vision changed in the past 12 months?
Okay. Um, I think a lot of people think that I built the business because I love working out so much, but I actually did it for the opposite reason, which is because I don't like working out so much. And a lot of it is not really because I don't like moving. A lot of it is because I find moving certifiably hard because I have arthritis. And back then, when I was going through different gyms, it really felt like the gym culture was slightly toxic because it's about being exclusive, it's about looking a certain way, having a six pack, when all I wanted was just a place where I can feel accepted for being me, even if I'm not working out the hardest, even if I don't look a certain way. And that was a culture that I think was missing in the fitness industry, or it was not as large as I'd like it to be, which is why I started the business, because I wanted to make fitness more accessible, inclusive. It's about celebrating what you can do rather than criticizing what you cannot do. And that's it.
How has your vision changed in the past 12 months?
Um, I think the vision is the same, actually. The vision has always been, how do we make wellness, how do we make this healthier lifestyle accessible? It has never actually changed because everything else about it is just a product, right? Um, People get stuck on the concept of a product, like it has to be this product, like, but remember that the product should always be a vehicle for you to get to your purpose or your values or whatever it is, the reason why anyone would make a business. Because to say that it's just money, that's insane, as any entrepreneur would know, because it's one of the fastest ways to lose your money. I should know, I've done it, right? My first company went bankrupt because I was an idiot. And so that's something that we have to always remember. If you're trying to build a business, that vision, that mission, values, whatever you want to call it, should stay pretty consistent, because there must be a reason why you didn't take a more stable situation for this madness.
Thank you so much, Geeta, for actually answering that question. I think accessibility, inclusivity is the kind
Yeah.
of driving force that actually caused you to create our fitness, actually.
Yeah.
I think one of my next questions is, what is the best part about being an entrepreneur? What do you enjoy the least?
The best part would be the process, like the experimentation, right? Because when it comes to success, I don't know what that even truly means, because what one person considers success, another person could be considered a failure, right? Like, I think if Jack Ma woke up to my net worth, he will like go jump off a bridge. Like, I don't know. Um, that was a joke from, I think, Chris Rock, if I'm not mistaken. Or yeah, but anyway, the idea is, it for me, it's not per se like the success is when people tell you you're doing a good job. It sounds pretty cool, but in the end, it's really about the experimentation, the trying something out, the doing crazy stuff, the just taking a risk. That part's fun, because then it's just one big data taking process. that's fun. The least fun is, I think people, when they think of entrepreneurship, they think of doing something cool or like something they're passionate about, or, you know, something that's filled with purpose and meaning, you know. But actually, the majority of entrepreneurship is you're doing pretty boring shit day in, day out. Like, you have to go on your Instagram, you have to go on your, you know, Facebook, you have to have classes. For the most part, it's pretty boring, or it's pretty static, or it's pretty just tiring. You have to go on your Excel, you talk to your investors if you have investors. And those are the things that will make people sometimes question, why am I doing this often? Because the sexy stuff is not common. Like the sexy stuff, like my fundraising, I don't know why that's even really sexy, but that happens what, in 6 years now, 3 times. That's not saying much, right? But or launching an app has only happened once in our 6 years of existence, right? So it's more about, as a good friend of mine said, rather than trying to find your purpose, can you do everything with purpose? Can you do the small things with passion? Can you do can you be like that sushi chef in Japan that makes sushi rice for 10 years straight every day? That's the question.
Thank you so much, Gita, for answering that. I like how you actually mentioned everything being done on purpose makes more sense for you. And it's great because I think that's a really nice or fruitful motto for a lot of entrepreneurs to follow. So thank you for sharing that. Now let's move on to our next question. It can be lonely at the top. How do you cope with this?
I used to think that, and then I really wonder, is it just because I make myself lonely? I mean, a lot of times we just assume no one understands what we're feeling and thinking because we let it simmer in our brain. But if we really think about it, tons of people have experienced very similar things, even the same things as us. So these days, although as much as I'd like to go, it's lonely, it's really not. I have friends, and if I just, you know, run my mouth and say things as they are, which I tend to do sometimes, to the dismay of maybe many people, I end up being not very lonely. I also have a husband who unfortunately has to listen to my BS fairly frequently. And so I think it's more about, are you vulnerable enough to just admit that shit's not always great? Or are you vulnerable enough to, one step up, show your team that a lot of times you don't have stuff figured out, nor should you have stuff figured out, because everything, especially during a crisis, is one big experimentation. And most people who go, but I would have done this, are usually, one, not an entrepreneur actually. Like, they have literally never spent money creating a company, right? Or two, they're not very experienced, because every entrepreneur I've seen that are in the route of the 20-year entrepreneur category, 20, 25, 30. So I'm talking real ones. I'm at 11 years, and even this, I don't think I measure up to a lot of my other friends. They are the first to tell you that a lot about entrepreneurship is simply luck and timing, and things happen sometimes. So you can be the best of the best, you can think optimistically and have a growth mindset every second, and things still might not work out because I don't know, because the world. Yeah. So I'm learning that as we speak.
Thank you so much for answering that, Gita. I love how this interview is so realistic, and it's, I mean, when we decided to interview you, we knew the kind of Gita that we would be expecting. So that's exactly how it is, and I'm loving it. I'm very sure that the entrepreneurs watching it will be loving it as well. Now let's move on to the next question. What has been the hardest business decision that you've had to make in the past 12 months, and why did you have to make it?
Okay. So here's the thing. The past 12 months have been wild, and I've had to make some really crazy decisions. The big one, though, is the fact that we went from 5 locations to 0. And here's the crazy part. This was in March. So March was when the first cases hit Indonesia. In my brain at the time, I went, knowing the science of this thing, I can either resist, right? I can either go, this isn't that bad, and create all sorts of stories to confirm my want that it is not that bad. Like I can do that, and go like, oh, we'll just close down for a month, or like, oh, just wait until everyone else closes, right? I could have done that, and I could have made some money along the way, but we made a very quick and pretty damn dramatic decision of closing down immediately before lockdown, in fact. Two things came in mind. One, safety, because if any of my staff, especially my staff, any of my customers ended up getting sick, which I don't care if people go like, yeah, but maybe you won't die. I'm like, that's really not great standards to have. Like, cool. Or maybe just don't get sick. For anything, I would treat lots of things the same way. Like if someone says, hey, there's a dengue epidemic, I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't have random bits of water just lying around static, right? So we closed all 5 locations before Jakarta locked down. And we said it was for a month, but what I did that day was create a financial model where we envisioned that the entire locations are closed for 9 months. That was before anyone locked down, while everyone was saying it's a hoax, while people were saying it's not that bad. I went, actually, I'm going to assume it's that bad. I'm going to assume that we have 0 revenue for 9 months. That was actually the estimation I made. We ended up, not getting to 0, knock on wood. But I went, okay, let's assume worst case scenario. And I highly recommend many entrepreneurs to do worst case. In fact, I do it all the time. Worst case scenarios are helpful because it can show you where you are and what you can do to prepare for almost anything, right? So my worst case scenario at the time, we envisioned 9 months of 0 sales. Then how much money do you need? Then what should you do? Then how do you change? Then how do you pivot? Where do you go? But there was one thing I very quickly let go, the idea of a normal. One, there was no normal to begin with. Just because it was working out for you doesn't mean it was working out for someone else, right? We just keep thinking of the new normal because we like what we had before. But really, that's not a thing. So that was immediately gone in my head. The question then becomes, how do you communicate this to everyone else in the team? Because with 5 locations, you kind of have some people, right? And I will say, yeah, some people bought into the new direction. Some people thought it was too grim of a thought. They're correct. And the only way I know whether any of this will quote unquote work out is as we keep going. That's it. But during a time in which so many other companies have, fallen for whatever reasons, not because they're terrible people, but because the world is random, we actually didn't do that badly. We succeeded in pivoting. We now sell equipments and also rent them. So you can buy yoga mats, t-shirts, bikes if you want. And we also have online classes and an app. So we've been doing okay. Are we taking over the world yet? No. Am I a bajillionaire? No. But are we actually weathering the storm? Surprisingly. It required changing your mindset. And the hardest part for me is definitely letting go of the past. That maybe what happened to you before is not going to happen in the future. Or a big one for me is maybe people who were with you in the past, like they won't be the ones who you need to be with in the future. Or a big one too is maybe the way I envision how I get to my larger goal will take a detour. The timing might be different, it might be later, or the vehicle might be different. So back then, everybody all wanted to do just indoor cycling. That's very cool. Turns out, oh, lots of people love Zumba. So, so you just keep shifting with the times and you just do your best. And if you mess up, you change course. And sometimes you just got to accept that you got to work with timing. You got to work with how the world changes. And that's it. Just breaking with the past, I would say, would be the tough part. And I think that's very tough for, especially I think the longer your business is around, because you associate who you are with your business, which for me is like, by the way, don't do that. You are more than like pieces of private limited. That's bizarre. So, but that was big for me, right? Like, I fell into this really terrible toxic trap of thinking that my work defines me. And I'm really glad that I had a crisis to wake me up into thinking, no, your work is part of what you do. It's definitely not you.
Thank you so much, Gita, for actually answering that. I love how you said you should never tie your worth to your work, and how it was really well explained. Like, I love it. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs are going to benefit from this interview, because a lot of them are guilty of doing that. And also off interview, you told me about this gratefulness list, and you're not the first person to actually say that. There's something repetitive that I've heard successful entrepreneurs actually saying it. And basically being mindful of your grateful list and what you're grateful for every day actually helps coping with the loneliness, making sure that you're in check, and also just basically loving yourself even more, and loving your business, and looking at it in a forward-looking direction. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's we're at our final question. What big problem are you trying to solve internally that could transform your business externally?
I think in the end, every single business out there will pretty much only have one big root issue or thing that they have to manage, and it's people. So my one big thing is, one, how do you find the right people, which might not always translate to a certain skill set, right? And skill sets, there are multiple kinds of skill sets too. So that's huge. And you can have some of the best minds in the world gathered in one place and they don't work well together. That's possible. You can also have people who tend to be pretty good at some things and not great at certain things, but somehow they fill each other out. That's also a thing. So for me, it's one, how do you find the right people constantly, not just once, but constantly. And then two, how do you create a vision that is bought in by people? You may have friction in terms of how to get there. You may have friction in terms of the products, how it's made up, but those things will not be as integral as what about the real actual values and purpose of what you're trying to solve. That's it.
Thank you so much, Gita, for patiently answering all my questions. I love how you're always so genuine, so authentic. I've always enjoyed all your interviews. It's always our honor and pleasure to be interviewing you. Any final words for our entrepreneurs watching this interview?
I think that when we think about entrepreneurship, definitely always try to look at things from the outside. Don't tie yourself so much with what you do, because it's really not who you are. Like, you would never judge a kid based on the fact that the kid is not a CEO yet, right? Like, you're not going to judge a 6-year-old so harshly. So try to be kinder to yourself, and also understand that everything has luck, timing, and a million other things that none of us can actually control. So you better enjoy that process. I'm not even saying trust the process, enjoy it. Because if there's one thing you can't ever get back, it's process.
Thank you, Gita, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.